What's up guys, Dave1, 2, and 2, and together another list for you. Today's list is going to be the best Synchro Monsters in the game. We'll do top 12. Originally I wanted to do one for each level, otherwise it would just be a bunch of level 8s and 7s, and that would be no fun. But then it turns out, there's only one level 11, which is Star Eater, and he's okay, I guess. And there's no level 1s, because I don't know how you would make a level 1 Synchro, frankly. So I had to double up on 5s and 8s, but pretty much the rest of the list is in order, but we'll flip it because otherwise they're offset anyway, and that doesn't make any sense. I will include a couple of honorable mentions for certain levels because some of the card pools at each level were expansive and very good. So anyway, let's get started. 12. Going in reverse order, we have Formula Synchron at number 12. A fun little synchro tuner that's pretty much imperative for any massive synchro spam deck. When it hits the field, you can draw one card. It is optional. I'm not exactly sure why you wouldn't draw a card, but you can. And during your opponent's main phase, you can force yourself into a synchro summon using this card as the tuner, which is really fun because you can dodge certain effects or screw up their play or anything. It's just a really imperative card. It gets you back some of the advantage you lost for synchro summoning, and it's a low-level synchro tuner, so it's, hey, you can make a lot of stuff with it. 11. The next one is Tatsunoko, another synchro tuner. It's very similar in its use, but its niche is a little different. This one lets you synchro summon using one monster in your hand, which is great because in the advantage you get back from Formula Synchron, if you can't summon that monster, what good is it doing to you? This one lets you use the monster that is in your hand already, so you got some give or take on both of these. It's really kind of neat, as well as the fact that it's unaffected by other monster effects, meaning your opponent can't do some weird thing to it to try to get rid of it or something. So yeah, you're pretty much going to be able to synchro summon with it. 10. Level 4 is the first one we actually have an honorable mention for because there really isn't very many 2s and 3s, and all the ones that aren't the ones I just mentioned are pretty lousy. So anyway, honorable mention for level 4 is PHONON Pulse Dragon, another low-level synchro tuner. This one's cool because it can modulate its level from 1 to 4, which basically means that it can be used as that level 1 tuner, which is kind of cool. And this lets you go into QUASAR really easy if your deck can make this thing and things like that. But I had to give it 2. Herald of the Arclight. Oh man, this card's really fun. It saw a lot of play during Necros format because you could use it with unicorn things as material, and then it would replace itself because as soon as it hits the grave, you can search a ritual, spell, or trap, which is just really powerful. But that's ignoring the fact that it actually has its own effect, which is, if you manage to synchro summon this thing, any monster sent from the hand or deck is banished instead. So it's kind of like half of a macrocosmos, which is it's a very good little floodgate. Plus, it can attribute itself to negate a card, which is awesome. And that means when you negate something, you also plus because it goes to the graveyard, and then you get that search. That's just really fun little card. And decks that can make this thing, it's a solid little floodgate. 9. Ooh, level 5. Honorable mention is Shien. If my worst synchro list has taught us anything, having a decent attack power and a really good effect as a level 5 synchro is pretty irrelevant if you're landlocked to a lousy deck, like some people. Sorry, buddy. I kind of misread you, but you're still landlocked to aliens. I'm sorry. Boop. I would argue that 6 Sams are much better than other things, but still, he is landlocked to a certain deck, so the spot went to Naturia Beast instead. Now, Naturia Beast is so freaking good. Similar negation idea, except he doesn't do traps, he only does spells, but he can do as many spells as he wants, and against certain decks like Pendulums, that's pretty much GG. He, again, is kind of landlocked to certain decks, but it's generic-ish, so it doesn't have to be made of 6 Sams, it's just out of Earth monsters. So, a little more leeway there, and again, this card is literally a game winner against certain decks. 8. Ooh, we have 2 level 5s, because there's so many good ones. Honorable mention goes to Armades! Now, you're going to say, Dave, you crazy, Armades is great. Yeah, he is, he's great. Any monster that has an effect remotely like his is called, it has an Armades effect. That's what we say. When it attacks or is attacked, your opponent can't use card effects, which gets rid of battle traps, which gets rid of weird floating monsters, all this hooey that drives you nuts. Armades is a great answer to that. Too bad he's not a little stronger, but you can fix that. But the spot had to go to TG Hyper Librarian, because no synchro summoning deck is complete without your TG Hyper Librarian, if you can make it. Because every time a card is synchro summoned, you get to draw a card, which is cool, because back in the 5Ds era, you could use this thing like a floodgate. You play it and your opponent would synchro summon, you get to draw a card. So it's almost like Maxianum, but it's a little more permanent, and it's a monster, so it's got legs and it can attack and things like that. And at 2400 as a body, that's not bad. Nowadays, that effect is a little less relevant, because, your opponent doesn't have to synchro summon, they could probably XYZ XYZ summon and get rid of this and then do their synchro summoning, because, you know, that's how fast all the decks are nowadays. But in your own deck, let's say Synchron, it's still extremely important, because every time you play your formulas, you get to draw a card from that, and you get to draw a card from this, and you just keep going, and QUASAR. So yeah, this card is still really important to certain decks, so I couldn't, in good conscience, leave it off the list. 7. Ooh, the start of a theme. DULOREN, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier. His effect is fun. You can bounce any number of cards on the field, and then he gains a 500 attack for each one he bounced. We don't really care about this attack boost, we care about the bouncing, because, you know, in synchro decks, combos are great, and they're all combos. It's combo, 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 combo. So, you know, hey, just bouncing stuff, just keep bouncing stuff, keep playing it again, keep going. Woody, 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 woo. That's probably why he's only at 1 still, because I think there's some dumb loops you can do with the thing if it's at 2 or more. So we keep him at 1 to be safe. But he's replaced by his brother, Brionek, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. The other level 6 Ice Barrier synchro is infinitely better. That's why he's banned and not at 1. You can discard any number of cards to bounce that many. And it's not once per turn for some strange reason, so you could like discard 1, test the waters, bounce that. Oh, it's okay. Okay, discard 2 this time, bounce those. It's really, really cool. And the combos you can do with this thing are dumb. Either you're bouncing your own stuff, just like I said with DULOREN, or you're just like, I don't know, bouncing your opponent's stuff and attacking for game. I don't think this card ever could come off the ban list without an errata, and that errata would probably be a once per turn clause, but I don't even think that would really stop the card from being one of the most powerful synchros in the game, so it'd be interesting to see what they could do with it. 6. Ooh, level 7. This one was tough. There's a lot of good level 7 monsters. The honorable mention goes to Black Rose Dragon, one of the Signer Dragons. Oh, I love Black Rose Dragon. You know, every once in a while, your opponent's got this awesome board, and you can make this one level 7 synchro play. It's all you got. You're like, all right, nuke the board. Boom! And they can't stop it. And then you're like, oh, I have another turn to come back next time, because they're going to top deck. I'm going to top deck. Let's do this. But he's overshadowed by other level 7s nowadays. But there's a place in my heart for Black Rose Dragon. Just a really fun little board nuke. But it goes to Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, because this card is just the tits. This thing's actually got a really neat little effect. Or 3. If a level 5 or higher monster activates its effect, he can negate and destroy that card. Or if a monster targets a level 5 or higher monster, he can negate and destroy that card. And his third effect is whatever monster he killed with his other 2 effects, he gets an attack boost for. So that's just like icing on the cake. He can get really, really big, because if he's killing a level 5 or higher monster, he's probably getting like a 2,000-3,000 attack boost. This card is just really, really useful, and certain decks that can play this thing, it's a great little floodgate kind of self-protection card. 5. Ugh, level 8. This was a nightmare. But I gave it to Void Ogre Dragon for the honorable mention. I like Void Ogre Dragon. Decks that can make him, he's a fun little once per turn spell trap negate if you can dump your hand. And at 3k body, that's pretty big actually. He's a pretty big stick. So he's a good little card. But the spot went to Ignister. I don't know how you could not give it to Ignister. Ignister's great. He's at 1 for a reason. Once per turn, you can destroy 1 pendulum card on the field. Doesn't necessarily have to be a monster or a scale. It could be either to spin 1 card off the field. And that card is not targeted, which means this is a great out to Dark Destroyer for like 2 reasons. It doesn't target, so you can actually do something to it, and it doesn't float because it goes into the deck. Woo. And, to boot, if there is no pendulum card on the field to destroy, he can just summon 1 out of the deck. Just, you know, here, now I got one. So, like, he's just really, really fun. And then at level 8, you can, you know, use him and Dynaster to go into Hope Harbinger or something like that. Like, also, he's at 2850. That extra little 50 on the end of his attack power actually turns out to be pretty useful, because there's a lot of good monsters at 2800, and he's just a little bit stronger. Just a little get over. Just 4. Ooh, level 8, number 2. Ooh. Alright, level 8, number 2 is a really hard spot for me again, because this one's got to be a little bit better than the last one, and there's a lot of great level 8s. But we ended up going with our honorable mention, which was Psyframe Lord Omega. Now, you're going to probably crucify me for this one, but hear me out. Omega is awesome. He's a extremely powerful card, and if you really haven't lived until you played against Synchro Fusionist, and they dropped 3 of these on you first turn, and then just like banish your whole hand, and you're like, I guess I'll just pass. But the spot ended up having to go to Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Once per turn, it can negate 1 monster effect, which is awesome. And then when it battles a monster that's level 5 or higher, it gains the attack of the monster it's attacking. So it's kind of permanently honested. Cosmos, again, with like Dark Destroyer, have a really hard time dealing with this thing, because this thing can just crash over the Dark Destroyer and then negate its effect so it can't float. Oh, this card is amazing. Only issue is, it's a little hard to make, but ULTIMAYA TZOLKIN can make it with 1 set. You can make Ignister too. 3. Ugh, I'm glad level 8s are over, because that was a nightmare. It's like trying to pick your favorite kid. It's like, I like your older brother. But the honorable mention for level 9 is Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Another really fun, neat little newer card. Trouble is it's landlocked to Blue Eyes White Dragon, which again makes it a little less inherently useful, but in the deck that it's played in is very, very good, and that deck is also meta, so that's also a consideration. It's got a fun little floodgate effect that either player can only special summon one monster at a time, which is kind of neat against pendulums and things. Plus it has a quick effect which lets it tribute itself in order to summon a light dragon from the extra deck. Probably Azure. Fun little card, but it went to Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. I think it's funny and a little ironic that like Ice Barriers are such a bad deck, but all their synchros are really, really powerful. I don't even think they can make them very well. But anyway, Trishula. When this thing hits the field, watch out. It banishes a card from the hand, field, and graveyard. The hand and field, woo, so good. Graveyard, icing on the cake. And depending on what deck you're playing against, man, you can be really debilitating hitting somebody with a Trish play. Sometimes that's almost game winning. Sure, this thing has to be made of 3 parts, but I wouldn't say that's that big of a deal because the decks that can make this card can really make this card. It's at 1 for a very, very, very good reason. Chew. Ooh, level 10. Honorable mention should probably go to Nirvana High Paladin, but I'm going to give it to Archfiend Bane.
So I can do this voice. Batman, crashing this plane with no survivors. The city is yours.
Alright, I'm not going to do that for the rest of the list. Or will I?
Batman?
Alright, I'm done. But anyway, the spot actually goes to Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree. I don't know why it wouldn't. This card's freaking phenomenal. At 3100 body, that's already really nice because that extra 100 makes this thing a little bit difficult for certain things to get over. Again, I keep harping on Cosmos, but like Dark Destroyer. Also, it can't be targeted. That's the best thing about this thing. So it's like Dark Destroyer, but it's just 100 bigger. I mean, sure, it can be targeted during your main phase too, but that's essentially meaning it's not being able to be targeted because your opponent's not going to have a lot of outs to it that can be activated during your main phase too. And if you think that your opponent does, just don't go to your battle phase. End your turn. 1. Like I said, I'm skipping level 11 because Star Eater is the only one, and that seems kind of silly to put him on the list, so we're going to go right to level 12. First, I was going to give it to ULTIMAYA TZOLKIN because he's technically level 12. He's also technically not because he's got no stars. But he's a fun little card. He can pretty much summon half the things on this list, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to give it to this guy. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Man, is this thing got a really long name and like a wall of text. But what does he do? When he Synchro Summon, you can activate his effect, which is... For the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects, and they can't activate cards or effects in response to this effect, which means you completely locks your opponent out from doing anything for the rest of the turn. Whoa, and he's at 4k body, so he's just absolutely huge. So he's going to attack, and he's going to do a massive amount of damage, and he does a bunch of burn damage when he destroys a monster in battle. And if he's somehow killed, you can summon a Dark Synchro Dragon from your graveyard. Just, woot, this card's amazing. But he's overshadowed by everyone's favorite classic huge dragon boss monster, Shooting QUASAR Dragon! Oh, this card's fun. It's a bitch to make, but it's totally worth it. He gets 1 free negate of anything once per turn, which is just really, really useful, because sometimes it's that 1 negate is your opponent's only out to the card, and for every monster that was used to make him accept the tuner monster, he can attack. So, like, if he was probably made of 3 cards, which means he can attack twice, and at 4,000 attack, he's an instant OTK if there's nothing in his way. He is a massive monster, and he's pretty much the epitome of, like, uber awesome synchro plays. Like, all the cool Synchro Monster replays you see is always like triple Quasar, first turn, OTK, bleh, thing, craziness. Sure, Cypher Dragon is also very, very good, and he easily could have been the honorable mention for the level 12 spot, but I had to give it to the OG Quasar, because this card is just a lot of fun to play, and it's really impressive, and it takes a lot of shenanigans to get out, but if you can do it, it's a really fun, awesome card. Anyway guys, let me know what you think about the list. This one was a lot of fun to make because, unlike the worst list, it's got more of a positive tone, and I'm not insulting anybody by telling their favorite card is terrible. But I'm really curious to know what you guys think. You know, maybe cards I left off the list. What's your favorite Synchro Monster? I don't really care. I'm just curious to know. So like, comment, subscribe, click an ad. It really helps me out. And remember guys, if you don't troll the meta, who will? I'll see you guys next time. What is this? Hamburger recipe to tribute your heretics from your hand in order to summon your Labradoodle or Wattail and your hungry hamburger and go into things like ULTIMAYA TZOLKIN, which can then make your Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon and Ignister.